Have you ever wanted to be rich beyond your wildest dreams? Maybe you've already thought of ways to get there through business, stardom, fame, you name it. Maybe you've been invited by others to take part in a get-rich-quick scheme. However, it's true that nothing worth having ever comes easy. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about one such get-rich-quick scheme and what is possibly one of the most popular investment frauds in recent history. This is Fraud Explained. To enjoy more videos, subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell, or else I'll be looking into you too. Ponzi schemes have been around as early as the 1860s, and they have become prevalent in society as an easy way to earn money quickly. In this video, you will learn how Ponzi schemes came to be and just how much money you can make off of starting one. Now you may wonder, what exactly is a Ponzi scheme? Ponzi schemes are frauds that lure people to invest in them with the promise of having big returns for the investors without them needing to do much work. However, these business scams basically generate their income from the funds given by other investors. Victims of Ponzi schemes are unaware that the returns that they receive are actually from fellow investors because fraudsters usually disguise the funds as income that comes from the sales of a product or a service. Instigators of Ponzi schemes usually produce vague answers when asked how their investments would be able to generate income. They tend to offer little information on how the investment would work, but would instead make their victim focus on the promised returns. Usually, the people who are victimized have little to no idea how investing or trading works. The goal of the scam is to gather as many investors as it can so that the money pool will keep growing and growing and would be able to pay off earlier investors. Now, if someone starts to offer you an investment where they say you would have very high returns with little to no risk and are unable to produce little to no physical proof of a registered product or service, they may be trying to victimize you as part of a Ponzi scheme. Ponzi schemes date back to the late 1800s. The earliest recorded frauds that fit today's description of the Ponzi schemes were carried out by Adele Spitzer in Germany and by Sarah Howe in the United States. Their target clientele was unmarried women who had just enough money to invest in a fund. Sarah Howe's scheme became known as the Lady's Deposit. The Lady's Deposit required the women to invest anywhere between $200 and $1,000, with the promise of an 8% return on their investment per month. The scam became so popular and ended up swindling hundreds of women. However, this scam got its name after Charles Ponzi, an Italian con artist who tried to conduct multiple investment frauds in the United States and Canada. Charles Ponzi was born to a rich family in Lugo, Italy in 1882. However, the family lost its fortune after falling on hard times and was in need of money. A young Charles lost his money during his university years because he tried to keep up with his wealthy friends. As a result, Charles Ponzi graduated nearly penniless. This prompted him to journey to the United States in hopes of restoring the family fortune and making a name for himself. He came to the country with a mere $2.50, having gambled away most of his money during his trip to America. He got around doing a few odd jobs and was able to find work as a waiter, only to be fired for duping the customers by stealing part of their change. He moved to Canada a few years after and was able to get a job as a bank teller at the Banco Sarossi, which was an Italian-owned bank that had just opened in Canada. Because the bank grew rapidly, Ponzi was eventually promoted to manager, and it was when he became manager that he learned that the bank was in big trouble due to some bad investments it had made. To stay afloat, the bank was actually paying its clients interest payments using the money from newly opened accounts at the bank. Eventually, Banco Sarossi could no longer keep up the charade and was forced to close down. When the bank closed, Charles fled to Mexico with a huge portion of the bank's money. This was where Charles learned that committing such fraud was actually possible. It would take a few more years for Charles Ponzi to develop one of the most income-generating scams in history. In 1919, Charles Ponzi eventually flew back to Boston, and he was able to open an office. He would write to people in Europe trying to get them to invest in his ideas. Through exchanging letters with various European companies, he was able to discover the international reply coupon. The international reply coupon worked by letting people from different countries communicate and served as a way for them to pay for the postage. Charles Ponzi saw this as an opportunity to make money, since international reply coupons, or IRCs as they were called, were valued based on the country that they originated from. They could be exchanged based on the value of postage in the country where they would be redeemed. The value of Italian postage stamps greatly went down because of World War I. As such, international reply coupons could be purchased in Italy for a very low price, and then exchanged for postage stamps from the United States, which could then be sold at a much higher value. Charles Ponzi estimated about 400% return by doing this, and decided to pour all of his time and energy into procuring as many international reply coupons as he could. Unable to get loans from big banks to fund his project, Charles turned to the public and some of his friends and promised to double their investments in a span of 90 days. Confidence in Charles Ponzi grew when he was able to produce his promised investment returns in a shorter period of time. Charles Ponzi was able to grow funds exponentially through this scheme and was able to set up his own company a few years later. He created the Securities Exchange Company to forward the fraud. During the first month, 18 people invested $1,800 each in the company. Ponzi was able to pay them off using the money of those who invested within the next few months. The company grew and grew, with more and more people investing in the Securities Exchange Company. Charles even hired a few talented agents who he gave generous commissions to whenever they would be able to secure new investors. In just a few months' time, Ponzi was able to raise millions of dollars from those investing in his scheme. Even though this was the case, Charles Ponzi had one big problem. Although he was able to pay off his initial investors, he did not know how to turn the international reply coupons into real money. The only money that came into his company was the money he made from the investments of other people, and for a time, this sustained the business. He soon began to live a lavish lifestyle by buying high-class cars, a mansion, and tickets to luxurious trips abroad. He even began buying other companies in hopes to generate enough funds to pay off those who had invested in the Securities Exchange Company. However, he never once invested his money in his own company. Charles Ponzi's quick rise to being a multimillionaire drew suspicion from many people, and pretty soon he and his business were placed under scrutiny. Eventually, his scam collapsed due to his bank accounts being overdrawn. Ponzi was then charged with 86 counts of mail fraud, but only admitted his guilt to one count. Because of this, he was imprisoned for 5 years. Those who invested in his scam were left financially devastated. It would take decades for them to build up and earn back the money that they had invested in the Securities Exchange Company. However, not all Ponzi schemes end up with the instigator serving jail time. Sometimes these schemes fall apart because the main masterminds fled with all of the invested money. Ponzi schemes also end up failing when there are no more new investors to contribute to the pool of money, which would gradually run dry. Either way, those who are victimized by the scam end up taking big financial hits that are almost impossible to come back from. So the next time you think about even joining a get-rich-quick scheme, remember the story of Charles Ponzi and the people who fell prey to his fraud. You just watched how a Ponzi scheme works. Do you know any other get-rich-quick schemes? Are there any other popular fraudsters you'd like to learn about? Comment down below and I will respond to all of you who comment within the first hour. If you like this video, you would certainly love the other videos on our channel. Head on over and check our videos and show us some love. We hope to see you on our next episodes.